Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel and welcome to Tuesday, another week, and the sun's actually shining here in Cheshire, so it's lovely. So I thought I'd pop along and we create a little journal page. So I have my pink pig journal, the one that's got 25 pages in, and the card is really thick watercolour, but it's quite smooth, even though it's got a little bit of texture, so it's perfect. I'm going to take my circular stencil ST6, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take, do you want it there, Tracy? Yes. So I'm going to add it here, and I'm just going to do a light pencil mark. So let me just, now she says, what did you do with the pencil, dear? Is that a pencil? I've got them all over the place really, but that'll do, won't it? So I'm going to draw around, don't want it a bit lower, no. Do you like how I'm umming and ahhing where I want the... So I'm using the largest circle on the stencil. It's around, I think it's around about 3 1/4, but that's the largest circle. Do I want to? No, let's just have that at the moment. Whew, I'm warm and we haven't even started yet. So I've got my circle there on the page, and I've actually got a jar of water, and I've got a round brush. Now I'm just using a round brush. This is a number 10 round brush, and the reason I'm using this is it holds quite a bit of moisture in this brush, which is quite handy. And I can just turn this circle around like so. There we go. So I've got plenty of water in there, and I'm going to use my Lindy's. So I've got take it or leave it, and then you can just drop it all on the page like that. Oh, for goodness sake. Spot the person that this hasn't been opened. I wonder if this comes off. There you go. Thank goodness for that. And we've already got some on there before we've even started. So let's just brush all this off. And Tracy doesn't edit out any boo-boos because it happens to us all. It happens to all of us. There we go. So I'm just going to brush this up with a nice fine brush, and I think I've got a dustpan and brush. Now don't laugh at me. She says, can she get the brush out of the... How'd you get it out? There you go. I have actually got a dustpan and brush in my little craft room. I know, madness, eh? There we go. So I can then just place that back in my pot. There we go. So I've just placed that back in my little pot. You can still, let me just grab some. There's some little bits of dust here. Let's grab mine. And before we knock anything over, because we know what we're like, there's a little bit in the lid there. There we go. And then you've got it all over your hands. And it's just, it instantly comes to life the minute it touches moisture. But we've got colour over here, so let's pick up some of this colour on a piece of card. Look at that. Look at the pigment on that. Wow. Look at the pigment on that. Look how much pigment is left there. Let's grab another piece of card. I've got 2 more pieces of Pink Frog super smooth card. And yes, we dropped the lid, but it doesn't matter. You just take it as an opportunity just to mop up some of that colour. So I'm just creating some backgrounds. I mean, look at that. I mean, I swept most of it up, but this is just the little bits of fine dust. And it's just amazing how much you pick up. It's all over my hands. But let's just pick that up. So I've now got 3 backgrounds that I could work with, just so that we're not wasting that. And just talking about the Take It or Leave It, what a beautiful colour. Right, let's grab some kitchen towel. And you don't want to see my mucky fingers, so let's give that a little bit of a clean. It's not pleasant to look at. Okay, so we'll go back to what we were doing. So I'm going to just add a little bit more water now, because obviously Tracy's been faffing a little bit now. So I'm just going to take a little bit more of the Take It or Leave It. What just beautiful colours. There we go. And you press that down. So that's Take It or Leave It. And you can see there's some bit of green coming through here, which is rather apt for, is it St. Patrick's Day today? So it's rather apt. Then I'm going to take let me just wipe. Oh. I'm going to take a little bit of Portrait Blazer Blue. I think I'm paranoid now. There we go. I'm going to tap a little bit of that Portrait Blazer Blue. And I'm literally just going to drop some water in there. So we can still come in, and I've got this round brush, and we can just continue to activate. At the moment I don't want any colour there. So you can see I've got these lovely blues and greens. And then I've got a little bit of Ears Looking at You Olive. So let's take a little bit of Ears Looking at You Olive. I do love the names. So let's add a little bit. And you can see I'm being quite considered. So I'm not putting down too much, because I've got control then of that colour. And that's what I like. I've got control of my colour. And I've got those lovely blues and greens in there. And if you've got some pigment just sitting, just move it a little bit. But you've got some beautiful colours in there. I can also, if I wish, I can take my fan brush and I can just add a little bit more texture with a few splatters of water. And I'm just going to leave that to do its thing at the moment. So let's just leave that at the moment just to do its thing. And I'm going to take a Butylon. I'm going to just clean my hands. I'm just going to put some hand sanitizer on there. Can you believe it? I'm coming to the end of my hand sanitizer now. I need to get some more. It smells lovely. but it just cleans my hands a little bit. I just think it's not nice for you just to look at my messy hands. Right, let's move that out of the way. So I'm going to take the Abutalon stamp, and I'm going to take this beautiful floral here. And I'm going to cut it out, and I'm going to have the beautiful floral sort of here, just so that you can see the acetate. And I will cut that out, just so that I've got that lovely floral just added to here. And then I'll extend some foliage just around here as well. And I'm just leaving this to do its thing just for a little bit whilst we colour this image in. So which one? Where's your... I always have it a certain way. Where's the petal? There it is. I look at that petal there. It's just me being fussy, really. So let's grab some white card. So we'll grab some of that white card. And then I'm going to stamp this in my... What colour are you going to stamp it in? Let's have a look. Because I will leave a tiny white border when I cut that out. So I might use... Let's have a look at barley blue. Yes, I'm going to use barley blue just to change it up a little bit. So I'm going to use that barley blue. And you can see on this floral, it's got a lot of detail, but you don't have to necessarily stamp in black. So sometimes it's nice to stamp in other colours as well. So lots of tapping with the barley blue. There we go. And I'll try and remember to use the top of the card. I'm terrible because I often come down here right in the middle of the card for no apparent reason at all. There we go. And these colours here are really coming to life now. They're just beautiful. And this thick watercolour card in the Pink Pig journals can take that colour really nicely. And the only reason I'm cleaning my stamp is because if I pick it up, then I'm not going to get any colour anywhere. So I want to bring in... Now, I don't want to bring in my... So like how I can't make my mind up. It's going to be my Prisma. I do want to do a project with my Ecoline pens as well, because they're nice and bright, beautiful colours. So I want a little pop, and I like to sort of test my colours here of what I'm going to use. I quite like that. Yes, that's nice. We want a little bit of a darker colour. Now I think we'll go for, and it does take me quite a while to decide what I'm going to go for. A little bit darker, to be honest. Yes. Do I need anything lighter? Let's just take out the chartreuse just in case. Or is there anything lighter than that? I always end up pulling out more colours than I actually need. But there you go. But you can see the lovely detail in this floral, so it's really lovely. What I'm going to do is put my pencils in some kind of order. I'm not decided on them two yet, but I'm going to start with Violet Blue, PC 933. And I'm just going to come in with a little bit of that Violet Blue. And I'm going to come in nice and lightly. So I'm not going to press too hard with our lovely blue colour. And whilst you are colouring, it's the ideal opportunity for this to just dry a little bit more, and you've got that richness of colour. Yes, we've got a nice puddle here. We can easily dry that once we're ready to add. So again, I'm going to add a little bit of that violet blue 933. Let's come up here as well. There we go. And we'll bring a little bit of that colour down here, a little bit there. So now I'm looking at my petals, and there's quite a few petals here, so just take your time just to decide where you're adding that little bit of colour. And as you know by now, because if you watch my channel enough, you know that I like to have a visual just on my florals, just so I can see where I'm going and where I want to add that darker or lighter colour. Where those petals meet, I want it a little bit darker. So you can see I'm sort of giving myself a guideline. So I want it a little bit darker over there, just where those meet. And again. So you can see I sort of give myself a guide where the dark's going. So I'm adding some dark at the edge here. I've added it there. And when you start doing this, you can see where you've missed a couple of petals. So you can see I very roughly give myself a guideline. I'm then going to go to Parrot Green. And this is PC1006. So I'm then going to come in with that Parrot Green. And I'm just going around one petal at a time. That way I can see where I've missed the dark blue colour. It's quite easy to see because you've got that visual. And I've missed a little bit there. So it's quite easy as you're going round, as you start to get a visual for the colours that you are laying down. And there's a little bit, actually we'll leave that for now. So we're coming in with this Parrot Green, which is 1006. And I'm very lightly just doodling a little bit of that colour on and going into that violet blue. And again, I've just missed a bit there. But once you've laid down that first layer of colour, it's very rare then that you miss, because you've given yourself that guideline. And you can extend the colours into your floral further, should you wish. But it's a beautiful floral to really colour in and play around with your colours. It's a perfect one to do that with. It really is. And because we've got that lovely blue stamping, it's a little bit different than the black inking. Gives it a different feel. So here you can see I've missed that violet blue that I can't remember the name of, and I have to keep looking at it. So we're then using this Parrot Green just to bring in a little bit of that colour. And again, you can see I've missed a little bit here. But even with the very basics of colour, it does start to come to life really nicely. So again, I've just got the basis of my colours down there. I'm then going to come to the lovely spring green. Now, isn't that perfect for this time of year? Especially when we've got blue skies. I love spring when you've got those new shoots coming up and those lush, fresh, sort of limey greens really coming to life. It's wonderful, wonderful time of year. There we go. So I'm bringing in a little bit of that green now. And that sort of really gives that a real pop. And I can see, again, I've missed a little bit here. So I'm just coming in just to make sure. So this is Spring Green 913. And just adding a little bit. Look, see, I've missed the parrot one here. So we'll come in with that spring green. Let's move that out of the way so you can actually see what I'm doing. And again, I'm being quite considered re the amount of pressure I'm putting on that floral. I am being very considered with that. Let's come in. There we go. So just laying that colour down very lightly. Scribbling that down very lightly. And it's funny because as soon as you add the three colours, it's lovely. What beautiful colours. And you can see I'm leaving a little bit of white because I like doing that on this floral because it gives it a natural shine and it makes it look quite domed. And I quite like doing that with this floral. It makes me look good as well, even when I'm not, so it's quite handy. So we're going to come in now with the violet blue, and I can't recommend enough, before you start colouring, if you can give your pencils a sharpen, that will really help you when you want to get into that really fine detail. It will really work nicely for you. I'm going to come in, and we'll come in. Now, I love doing this. I don't find it a chore at all. I just find it so enjoyable. Particularly as it starts to come to life before your eyes. It's just wonderful. So I'm coming in with this very dark blue. I'm just going to come in. And what I'm doing is I'm laying down my next layer of that blue, and we're filling in the open areas on that card. And as we fill in the open areas on our card, everything smooths out a little bit more as we work on that card. But again, we still don't put too much pressure on the project. We're still quite considered, read the pressure that we are putting down on our card. So just, and turn your card rather than your hand. It makes it so much more simplified for you, so you don't turn your hands in funny positions. Sometimes I have to do that because obviously when you're on camera, I need to make sure you can actually see what I'm doing. So I'm nicely laying down, and you can see I've left the central area, this area here, just so I can add some of those lovely touches of white. Do you know, I was up at 6 because I had to drop Ian off at the station. But isn't it amazing how much you can get done when you get up at that time. I don't normally get up at that time, trust me, but isn't it amazing what you can achieve when you get up so early? I'm then going to come to the parrot green, PC1006, and then with the parrot green, I'm just adding a little more pressure, and I'm going into that violet blue with the parrot green. So I'm going into that previous colour, just so that we haven't got any harsh lines. So I'm just coming in to that blue. And again, trying to be mindful and considered, read the pressure I am putting on the card. So again, I'm not pressing too hard. And when you lay down these colours, you can soon see the ones you've missed because they're not as smooth. So it becomes quite noticeable. As you lay down your colour. You can soon tell. So you're coming into that lovely blue with this parrot green. There we go. And it really does smooth out beautifully. I'm then going to take the spring green 913. So we'll take that 913 and I'm going into all the colours with that lovely spring green. Now, if you know you're not a green person, you can do it all in blue. But I always think it's good to just have a go at some different colours because it's surprising the effects you can get and how you do fall in love with maybe colours that initially didn't float your boat. But it does work really nicely. And this lovely spring green, it really does add some life to those petals. I definitely don't need the chartreuse. It's just lovely in its own right. It's coming to life rather nicely. And you can see by adding, not adding, but leaving a little bit of the white area, you can see it really does give it that domed appearance, as if it's actually more 3D. The petals seem to have a shape to them, so it works really nicely. And it's nice to show how this floral looks so different when you colour it in different colours. So I'm going to come back now with my last layer, which is my violet blue. And I'm going to be quite considered now. So I'm just going to come in with a little bit more of that violet blue. And I'm just using a circular motion just to give me a little bit more of that violet blue. And then where it goes in, right into the petals, I'm just adding a little bit more of that colour. So let's turn this around just so that you can see exactly what I'm doing. So let's just bring a little bit more colour in. And as that smooths out, it just gives that a lovely, lovely look. So I'm coming in quite dark here, where those petals really start to meet. So where my petals join quite tightly, I'm coming in with a little bit more of that colour, just so it's a little bit more pronounced. Then I'm going to come to our parrot green. And I'm going to come in to that blue. So just coming into the lovely blue with the parrot green, just to smooth our blue out a little bit. And you do lose yourself, which is wonderful sometimes. So I can see now I've got that other layer on there. And we still need to add our touch of white. And you can see sometimes where you've not added enough of a layer of pigment, and in this case your pigment is your pencil. Then I'm going to come back to the beautiful spring green. And with that spring green, I'm just going to go in to the other colours. So I'm coming into all those colours, each of the layers with the spring green. And still trying to be mindful that I leave a little bit of a white area. Just so that that has that domed appearance. Now, if you haven't left any white space, don't worry, you can just add it in with your bleed proof or your Posca pen. It's absolutely fine. But it really, when we add the white, just the domed effect on that is just beautiful. So now I'm going to add, I can use my Posca pen, and I'm just going to add a little bit of the Posca, and I just sort of come into the petals as well, just because that pop of white against those colours will be amazing. I'm just going to have a look at my other Posca pens, bear with me. So just grabbing my other Posca pens. So let's just have a look. That one isn't even open. There we go. We've got a green Posca pen. It says apple green. There we go. And I'm just going to add a few dots of the apple green to the centre as well. You can come in as well and add a little bit of blue. This is just light blue. And it'll just give the centre a little bit more. That's useful, isn't it? A pen that, look at that, there we go. There's plenty of colour in there. I don't want to press too hard. Yes, great video, Tracy. You can just show what it's like to use a pen. That'll be fine. So just adding some of that blue. And what I'll do then is I'll come in with some white over the top, and that just gives the centre a little bit more dimension. So it just gives that a little bit more dimension when you've got those layers of colour. It's like anything, isn't it, with the layers, because then the white, it just has a little bit more dimension. It's like a little jelly tot with the colours in there. It just works really nicely. You can then add a little bit of white. And it's entirely up to you if you want to add some sort of wispy white touches, but that looks so dimensional. I'm now going to cut that out. So let's just grab our larger scissors. There we go. And you can see it's the ideal opportunity to cut out. Now, my backgrounds have even, these are the backgrounds where I mopped up the colour, where it would spill, it had spilled the take it or leave it. So it's quite easy to make other backgrounds, which is rather nice. So then I'm just going to leave a little bit of a tiny white border, because for me it just pops against that background. And it's a nice, easy floral to cut out. It's not difficult to cut out at all. I'm using my Pergamano scissors. They are curved and go to a point, and they're sharp right to the point. So that helps me when I'm cutting out. And I'm one of those creatives who turns the card rather than the scissors. These colours are divine. There we go. That's it. So I've now got my floral, and you can see there's still some moisture on there. Where's my guide? I like it that way. So my floral will go here, but I do want to add some foliage, etc. So what I'm going to do is, let's grab our fern, which is TE3. So I'm going to grab my fern. So this is the stamp TE3. So let's grab a little bit of TE3. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab the small foon initially. And what we're going to do is we'll take it or leave it. Let's see if there's enough there. You don't really need much, but let's just have, there we go. And then water. So let's move that page out of the way. And then I'm going to take my stamp and I'm going to dab my stamp into the Lindy's. And what I'm going to do is just bring in a piece of card. Just take some of that excess off there. And then let's have that here. Now this is going to be quite watery, which is what I want. But what we'll do is let's dry this so we're not leaning into this. So we'll just give this a dry. So everything's going to work really nicely because it's all coordinated. And I've got that lovely rich colour on there. And I can easily come in and add more of the blue if I wish. So I'm just going to make sure this is dry because I'm just going to end up with leaning into the watery area and we don't want to do that. Now when you pick up this ink with your stamp, you can easily dab off the excess onto a spare piece of card. But I'm not doing that because I'm trying to keep as much on here as possible, just at the moment. Look at those colours in there. Just wonderful. And I'm trying not to dab, because if I dab, that will bleach that out, and I want to keep that colour at the moment. I don't want to dab it out. And can you see where it's been sitting? You've got those darker inulations, and it's just lovely. Just give that you can see I'm having to give it plenty of drying because that's how much water I used. Right. I'm then going to take the fern again and I'm going to dab this into the colour. Okay. And then I'm just going to add these watery ferns. And you're not looking for perfection, but you can also do splatters with these as well. So let's have, where's my floral? So you are going here, there, like so, yeah. So what I'm doing is I'm just going to build up some of this watery foliage. So it's a very sort of, now take off your excess. There we go. Can you see? So I'm just building up a little bit of foliage. And I can overstamp. Now I'm just going to take that off here at the moment and just remove the stamp because I want another foliage stamp as well. And your foliage stamps come into their own. Let's move these pencils because I end up with them everywhere. So then I want to take TE, where are you? Is it that one? 55. So if I take TE55. No, that's TE50, Tracy. TE50 on the wild side. We've got all these lovely bits of foliage. So it's TE50. Tracy just can't get any things right. So I'm going to take TE50. So let's take this one. I could have several acrylic blocks on the go, actually. So I'm just going to run this through here. And then I'm going to add a little bit of the stamping, like so. And you can do it several times just to add a little bit of texture. Now you're just adding textures at the moment. And it's quite watery, and that's why it's in the background. Okay. So then let's just clean that a minute. And then whilst we've got this on here, let's bring one of our backgrounds back in. And let's add this. You can see now it's a darker layer because I've added layers of that colour. So I could add a little bit more water to this. And let's dab again. So just building up the layers on the card. It's really worthwhile doing. Let's just give that a clean. So now I'm going to take Ears Looking at You Olive. Let's take Ears Looking at You Olive. Should be enough. You don't need very much at all. Look at that colour. Heavenly. So then let's just bring in another fern. Let's bring in a slightly larger one. And let's bring in another acrylic block. Now I know that this is quite grubby. I know because I can feel it. So let's just give the back of that stamp a little bit of a clean. Just so that it sticks on there. There we go. So now I can pick up the green and then I can just add some. I'm stamping over and over, and it'll just add some of those textures because we'll add some stamping as well. But it just gives that watery feel in the background. But it's the colours that are in our project, so it works really nicely. And this green has got browns in there, etc. And the reason I'm doing this watery effect is it looks a bit more frothy, you know, like you would in a floral arrangement. A little bit more frothy. So let's bring these up here. So you're just adding a few more of those frothier. So let's just clean that up. Let's just bring in my floral, and I'm looking for this here because then this is going to go here. And you can see by the time I've added some more defined stamping, that will be frothy in the background, which looks quite nice. Now I don't want to waste this, so let's mop this up onto another piece of my card. So I've then got a wonderful background. Let's pick the other piece of card up and add some of that to this as well. It just means at the same time I've created all these backgrounds. Right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to bring in the berries stamp. This is why I said TE55. I'm going to bring in the berries stamp, TE55. Let's bring that in. And there's lovely loose berries on this. I've got everything everywhere now. So it's got lovely berries on this, but now let's have a look. Try not to pull them off. We're going to use, we'll start with Verdant, which is just that very limey colour. Now this is a permanent ink, so it's not affected by our watery layers. So I'm now adding those berries with a little bit more definition in stamping now. There we go. Just bring this down here. So it just gives it a little bit more definition. So that's the Verdant. I'm then going to take Shady Lane because that will give me a little bit of a darker colour. So you can see I'm building those layers up. And it's great because the type of stamping I'm doing, you can over stamp. So let's have, just look at that with this Shady Lane. The depth that gives it is just wonderful. Really does give it depth. And I'm going to go to my Barley Blue, so I'm just giving that a little bit of a clean. So I'm going to come in with my Barley Blue, which is what I stamped the floral with. So I'm going to come in with the Barley Blue. And I've got the new colours on pre-order. Around about 10 days they should arrive. Fingers crossed. So we'll take that Barley Blue and then, you haven't got it right on the acrylic block because of my positioning. Let's put it a bit further up here. And let's just add a little bit of those blue ones here. So you can see I'm now extending these berries just so that you can see them all in between. There you go. But it just extends that lovely, lovely foliage. It just extends it beautifully because your floral will go here, and I will have some more cut out bits and pieces as well. So now I'm going to take, where's my fan brush? My fan brush is in my water. Let's just squeeze some of that out. And I'm just going to add a few little touches of that water now. Okay, put that back. Just so I get a little bit of texture just on my design. I'm also going to add a little bit of stamping in text. So if I grab my anti-static bag, if I take my anti-static bag, because obviously we've added moisture to this, so even if I use my anti-static bag now, that won't prevent the white embossing from going everywhere when the card is soaking wet. So you still have to give that card a dry so that you've not got that soaking wet moisture on there. You really don't want that on there. So give that a thorough dry and then use your anti-static bag. Let's take our anti-static bag. And then you can dab that all on your circular area. white embossing powder, and we haven't got our Versamark. So let's take our Versamark ink, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the berries stamp back in again, because on the berries stamp there's some text here that talks about berries and branches, so that's quite handy. So we'll use that text from TE55. So let's take the TE55. Which way? That's it. Shall I look at it 3 times before I actually get it the right way? So I'm going to take my Versamark. Now this white will really pop against that background. Let me just make sure. You want to make sure your page is straightish. So I'm going to add that here. I'm just going to give that a few seconds just to make an impression on there, and I can't see anything, which is about standard. So we will just sprinkle that embossing powder just so I can see. That's not got any in. My Wow opaque bright white embossing powder, and hopefully we've got some text on there. Let's have a look. Yes, we have. And because we've used that anti-static bag, it's not all clumpy and sticking everywhere, so that's lovely. So we'll take the text again, and we'll just, and you can see I'm adding it on this left-hand side of that circle so that you can actually see when I add the floral, so it's actually visible. So I'll take the text once again. I'll add a little bit more. And it's perfect because this will still be visible as bright white. It won't take on any of the colour from the background, so that's good. Oh, just tip it up that way, Tracy. There we go. So that'll just give me a pop of white. There we go. Little backgrounds tucked away everywhere now. So I'm going to heat this now so that we've got that white touches. Just heating that up so we're not just sitting there with the heat tool, not doing much. And this lovely bright crisp white is going to look lovely against that background. Now I've gone for a very organic feel, so you know I've not stamped perfectly in all the areas on purpose, just so it's a little bit more random. There we go. So that white really pops against that background, which is really lovely. I'm going to bring in some white cotton, but before I do that, I'm going to bring in the same stamp and I'm going to take it off the acrylic block. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take, what did you do with that? Did you leave that in here? I'm going to take a little bit of black ink now. So I'll ink the stamp with my Nocturne, and this will just give it a little bit more oomph. So I'm going to take a little bit of this black text, and again being quite random with the stamping and not really paying attention to where the floral's going, more about just adding some text to the background. And that pop of black is just lovely. Now, because I've touched that stamp, I just need to be careful I don't transfer that. I'm then going to take some white cotton. So let's take our white cotton. And I'm just going to spread this out. Just so, again, it's a little bit more free, not quite as, you don't want it too regimented, you want it sort of free. So I'm going to take a little bit of pin flare. So let's take a little bit of our pin flare. And I'm going to add a little bit of dimension. Now I'm going to squash it down a little bit as well. I'm just going to add this there. And this will capture that cotton thread. And you can see I've not left too much dimension on there because it's at the end of the day, it's in my journal. And I don't want my journal to end up too thick. So I'm just being mindful of that. There we go. Just press that down a bit more. Now before where's the berries one? Before I carry on, let's just remove that and place that down there. And what I'm going to do now is, first of all, remove some of this, just so I've got a bit more space. I do this every time. Oh, that butterfly might be nice on there. Just leave that out a minute, and then I'm going to take TE, where are you? Going to take TE45 with this foliage here. So you can see I'm really making use of my foliage stamps this time, which is just lovely. Might have everything everywhere, but it's lovely to make use of them all. And again, like I've done in a previous project, now we know this has got embossing powder on, but I'm not wasting it. So I'm going to take black now. And I just want a few branches. You don't have to do the cutting out if you don't like cutting out. But I like a few little branches cut out that I can tuck behind there. That's just me personally. And I'm just going to cut this out so I've got a smaller piece of card. And then I'm going to take a few pieces of this. And I'm leaving a white border because that makes it easier to cut something out that's quite fine like this is. Again, you don't have to do the cutting out if you don't wish. I do think it adds a little bit of texture, dimension, life. But again, we all, with our art or any crafty pieces, we do, it's all subjective because we all do see things completely different. But that's what makes it fun. Are you going to have that piece? Yes, let's have that piece. And this will just give the design some oomph. Let's go down there. There we go. So just bend that, and I'm just going to tuck that just in where that pin flare is. In fact, it should squash it in. Yes, I can feel it's in there. I'm then going to take a little bit more. So let's go with this piece. Now be mindful if you're touching the black, which sometimes I do because I'm so engrossed, you're going to need to wipe those fingers because you'll smudge some of the black. So you just need to be mindful of that. Let's get rid of some of that card. Makes it so much easier when you don't have too much card in your hand. You can use any foliage stamps you have, or maybe you've got a die. You can even use the floral cuts that I've got in a die, and you could add that behind as well. But I'm trying to give you as much variety as possible with your stamps, stencils and dies, just so that you actually use them. And it is enjoyable. There we go. I'm just going to bring a little bit more of this one. And it does really add something to that background. Brings everything to life. There we go. So I'm then going to push this in. Let me just have a look. Or do you want? Oh, this is my problem. Like, So look through here. I'm going to put it up here just to give me balance, because I quite like that. There we go. So I've just tucked them into the pin flare, and they will stick down nicely, which will work really well. So I'm then going, now have I got any eraser? Is this pencil? The top is for, I always forget these for ink, for pencil. No idea. Let's see if this will. Just erase. Then you get that everywhere. There we go. Just so it's a little bit more natural. Then I'm going to bring my little Inktense pencil, and we're going to just add a little bit of Inktense just under there. And luckily I've got my water right by the side in my jar. So let's just take a bit of that off. And now the movement on this page will be amazing. The Inktense just instantly moves because the quality of the cardstock, it's just wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. It really is. Now I'm going to just, I bet you I've put that text stamp away, haven't I? I'm just going to extend the text a little bit. So again, taking that text from TE55, I'm just going to extend it just up there a little bit. That's better. These little things matter, you know. And I've still got silver leaf from my Thrinchy demo. It's hilarious. I'm then going to take my bleed proof. Don't know whether that's the brush I've just used. I'm too engrossed. Let's take. There we go. So I'm just lightly tapping a little bit, because I'll add my Posca as well. But then I've got these splatters, these little splatters of white that will stay white because this is bleed proof. The Posca pen will take on some of this colour. Not too much if I dry it, but it will take on some of that colour. Let's move that out of the way. So now I'll bring my Posca pen, because for me, I just love the Posca pen. There we go. And I just want to add a word. Now, was that on the berry stamp? There was a word. Now, is it on TE55? What does that say? Each day is a new beginning. That's quite nice as well. Let's have each day is a new beginning on TE55. So we'll just take that. Use my black ink. And I like having this. I've purposely added some smaller sentiments, larger sentiments, tiny sentiments on purpose, because as I've developed, you know, creating as well myself, I've noticed that I do love to have that mix of sizes, because it really helps if I just want to tuck little bits in. It really does help me. Works really nicely. There we go. And then, let me just move that out of the way. On the same stamp, the berries stamp, on the berry stamp, you've got this little background piece here that's like the top of a book. This is on TE55 as well. It's like the top of a book. But what I sometimes like doing is, let's take that. So you can see that's just like the top of a book. Let me just cut that out. Love a little bit of faff, and it's my favourite part, faffing. But you can add, so we could add a little bit. Right, let me just cut that. Then I'll take my adhesive. Oh, I just love this. Works every time. Just brilliant. So take this here. It brings a little bit of black into that circular area to coordinate with my black here. And we'll have our sentiment. Each day is a new beginning. And I like it because it isn't overpowering. I want that. Like so. Just give that a bit of time just to grab hold. Can you see? It doesn't matter as long as it's caught. Do I want a little? These are the little bits for me that just finish it off. There we go. Look, I've put it where the cotton is again. And of course it's like, don't be silly, I'm not sticking down on the top of a piece of cotton. And you can see just how you build your composition, which I just love. I love how we've built that composition. Just wonderful. The only thing I would say is, let's take a little tiny bit of Take It or Leave It. Let's see if we can get some out the lid. Not a chance. Little count. There we go. That's all we need. Then I'm going to take my fan brush, which we can't find now. And let's see if, yes, look at that come to life. And now I'm trying to be too careful and nothing's happening. There we go. So I'm just bringing a little bit of the Take It or Leave It just in this area here and a few there. I don't want to overcook it. And again, you don't have to waste that. You can mop that up with your card that we've been doing the backgrounds with. Move them out the way. So you can still mop this up and continue to add more depth to your backgrounds. I won't, because you'll end up being here for 3 hours. Right, so if I bring this up now, let's bring the page closed. There we go. And you can see that's our lovely journal page. And I'm really pleased with that. So I hope you've enjoyed that, and I hope you'll give it a go. Love to all, and I'll see you all soon. Bye for now.